I always ask every guest the same question, which is, how did you get to New York? And I think I already know the answer.
Born and raised. I got to New York because, well, here, I'll give a different answer. I got to New York because my ancestors either made it here to avoid getting killed or got killed. So everyone's either dead or in Brooklyn.
What's that story?
The Holocaust.
Yeah.
Pogroms. Jews.
Where in Europe? What happened?
I don't know everything. We don't have any connections. So like, I only know anecdotal things. But like, Romania, Austria, Poland, I think Russia, stuff like that. Different ones. But my 23andMe says 100% Ashkenazi Jew, and it doesn't show. I thought I would learn more when I did 23andMe, and I actually learned nothing because, well, what I learned was that they all either came over here and I know who they are, or they got killed because there's no trace of us left in Europe. And my 23andMe traces back to Jerusalem, and that's it. So it just shows Jerusalem and then Brooklyn. It doesn't even show we had people in Atlantic City, people in the Bronx, people in Queens and stuff like that, in Absecon, New Jersey. But it doesn't show any of that. It just shows Brooklyn. And then it stopped. I don't know. Yeah.
Where in Brooklyn did you grow up?
I grew up in Manhattan. I'm first generation Manhattan. I was post Brooklyn. But my dad's side was Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge. My mom's side was kind of like scattered like that, like Bronx, Queens, Absecon. And I would go to those places on weekends with my grandparents and stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time in Bensonhurst. I was bar mitzvahed in Bensonhurst. Spent a lot of time in Queens with my grandparents. They had a warehouse out there, a video distribution warehouse. So I would sit in the back room and watch horror movies. That was my origin story. And then I'd play baseball in Riverdale, where my mom spent a little bit of time growing up. So I would go to the Bronx unrelated, and even Roosevelt Island. I played baseball on Roosevelt Island, but we never had people there. I just went there. But yeah.
Did any stories from your parents from before you were around about Brooklyn stick in your mind, resonate, still be of interest to you?
I'll say what comes to mind. Stickball in the street. The two things that came to mind just now are stickball in the street, and I won't name him, but the guy who got shot sitting in his car because he hung out with the wrong people. Dad, if you're listening, for whatever reason, that's what came into mind. But yeah, I loved learning about stickball from my grandfather and stuff like that. It's baseball with a rubber ball and a stick that you played in the street. And yeah, I remember always being shaken by the story of a friend of my dad's who didn't make it out. And that was always like a warning of like, you hang out with the wrong crowd and you get, found in your car. And I thought about that stuff. And I think that's stuff that, I think it's important to have that kind of dynamic range of experience foretold to you, that these are ways that can go, that being existence in life, that it can go certain ways, and knowing that walking down that street at a certain time can go this way or that way. And being a New York City kid, I always talk about people like, that kid never got, I can like look at people now and be like, that kid never thought about if he was going to get mugged tonight walking around. This guy I heard once talked about, he's from the CIA, and talked to us about condition white, condition yellow, and condition red. Condition white is I don't have a care in the world, and la-di-da. Condition red means like you are physically squared up and an altercation is occurring. And condition yellow is you're clocking. You see that guy walking down the street. Maybe you make your movement a certain way. Maybe you're walking with someone and you put yourself and them in between. Things like that. You see if his hands are in his pockets, whatever. And I say, like, New York City people are never in condition white. We're just at condition yellow baseline. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. I don't go to a restaurant or bar and it's not like Born Identity stuff. It's like just, I know my surroundings. I clock my surroundings. And it's, I don't know. It's just a baseline thing. I think it's a New York City thing.
Yeah.
People, when you're in the suburbs, you're like, oh, if you're in your cul-de-sac, nothing can happen. And of course, David Lynch taught us that's not true. But
do you know what brought your parents into Manhattan?
it was the city. It was New York. It wasn't Manhattan. It was New York. And it wasn't the city. It was New York. If you could, you did. I mean, it's as simple as that. What literally brought them was music. My grandfather did really well in music and had like a relevant life in Manhattan. And I think my parents took it even further, and they were like cool. They were cool. They were at, like the store. They were at things when they were, before I was a thing. They were cool. Like in the late 70s, my parents were cool. They lived in Manhattan. They lived on Irving Place, and my aunt lived there before, actually. My aunt was cool. And they were like around for the stuff that, I'm like super proud that like, oh yeah, they like knew what culture was, and the records that they worked on are like great records. And yeah, my grandfather's records, my grandfather's disco records are incredible. And that stuff happened in Manhattan. If it could happen, if it hit a certain, scale and culture, it was in Manhattan. But yeah, my mom talks about seeing Bruce Springsteen at the Bottom Line and stuff like that. And there's retrospectives about that stuff. And my dad talks about DJing at Regine's and Doubles. And yeah, and they lived downtown. And then they moved uptown really young because they were good at life and they could. And then I was brought uptown. Yeah.
What was your grandfather's role in music? What did he do? You said he was successful.
He had record labels. Yeah. Sam Records was like, he had Old Town Records and then Sam Records. And then he had a one stop called Win Records. And my mom always like, I think I butcher this summation. I don't think I tell this story accurately, but essentially the way he got into movies eventually was so she always side eyes me when I talk about this. So I don't know. I need to like ask her, like, what am I getting wrong? But back in the day, one stops were independent distributors. So the majors, now distribution is dominated like it shouldn't be, but it is. Everything is democratized, yet now we flood the airwaves and we flood everything, so it becomes impossible. It's signal to noise ratio. It's like everything is available. It's just you have to be found, and then they own the being found part of the process. It shouldn't be that way, but we let it become that way. Back in the day, you had to be in the store. You had to physically you had to physically manufacture a product, a tape or a vinyl or a cassette, whatever, a CD, and those had to be brought to a store on a truck. So the majors, what they offered was trucks and manufacturing and stuff like that. So the indies would group together and have locals called one-stops where they would handle a certain area. So like Win Records handled a certain area, and they had all these accounts of like this shop or that shop, and they brought things there, records, vinyl. And the same infrastructure can be used for VHS. So whatever it was, 2 decades later or such, when that became a thing, the same people realized, oh, we can get in on this. So I think I tell the story poorly, but I think that's what happened and how he got into VHS. And we have all of these like amazing classic video cassettes that I watched as a kid. And we still have it. We kept a ton of them. I have a bunch over there. And I don't know exactly the timeline clearly, but right, yeah. And then he had another record label called Nervous Records that he started, and my uncle took over and continues to this day. And it was a hip hop label and different things in the beginning, but now it's been a house music label for a long time, for like 25 years. And he's one of the most respected like dance music executives. So he's still doing it, and it's my uncle's awesome at it. But yeah, my grandfather's final label was Nervous, and my uncle runs it now. My uncle's Mike Nervous, he goes by now. That's however Michael Weiss. But They call him Mike Nervous. Yeah.
Was art always important to you growing up? Music, movies, etc.?
Yeah. They were all on the business side, but I kind of see, I kind of was the first one I was first generation Manhattan. And I think that like they all had a different position than I had. They were, again, I'm probably butchering people's, arcs, people in my family's arcs that I am projecting. But as I see it, they were finding their place in it. They were establishing their place in it. And I came from the luxury of my people before me having already established it. So I had the ability to take it all at face value at like, what do I like about this? What do I think this should be? What does it make me feel? I don't think that my parents, had the ability to do that. I don't think they approached it the same way as me. And they looked at it like, how do I make a life out of this? Yeah. And for me, I was born into a life of rich culture. I was surrounded by rich culture. It was beautiful, probably too much. I was spoiled by it. And it took me longer, I think, to find the other part of it, the how-to part of it. But the art is cool aspect of it was, I was 4 years old when I probably had that epiphany.
Did you always know that this is eventually what you wanted to do, that you would commit your life to the arts?
I didn't think about it like that. I played baseball. I went to Hebrew school and I went to the movies. I didn't think this is what I'm going to do with my life. It just was what I did. I think because of what I just said, my own gaps and deficiencies in personal development, the system of me being a person was developed out of order. So I didn't think about it. Like, I don't know how to do my taxes. I'm a nuisance. So I don't think I played baseball in my 20s, like even not just in college, but after college. Like, I don't think that I quite looked at it like, what is my career? I just did stuff. And that's why I DJ'd, like, because it was just doing stuff. I don't think I looked at it as like, okay, I think my girlfriend in my early 20s, she looked at it that way. She was like, you have a career in this, you have an interest in that. And she advised me to go do things that I had a career in. And she could have probably articulated it for me better. And I did it, but I wouldn't have articulated it that way. So I made all these decisions that were eventually like smart structural decisions for my life. But I don't think I think I can retroactively describe it better than what I could have said that day. I don't think, I went to film school, but like, I remember this weird thing where like I went to school for film before going to college. Like I'd spent my summers doing that and stuff like that. And I took classes outside and whatever. So by the time I got to college, I hated it because it was like, whatever, I did things out of order even in that way. But I remember not realizing that I was going to a proper art school. I went to Emerson College and I remember seeing this banner maybe a month into school that said something about, it said art on it. And because the term liberal arts was used always, but liberal arts did not mean art. Liberal arts meant just like thinking about multiple things as it was used to me when I was like applying. You went to a, university, or you went to a liberal arts school and like, so I went to a liberal arts school, but that didn't, people went for psychology and stuff like that to other schools, and they were getting a liberal arts education, but they were going for psychology or they were going for, socio-political blah. And I didn't quite realize until I had already been there for a minute that I was an art student. And I was on that. I applied as a film major, but I'm just saying in my brain, I was so out of order on things that like I didn't realize, oh, you're going to art school. And then I thought it was really funny because I was a 2-sport college athlete. I barely played, but because the teams were trash. But like I loved it and I did it. And I made that joke that I was the only two-sport college athlete from my graduating class of high school, and I used to say it like it was a brag. It was like a joke brag, but at art school. And I didn't develop that for a while. I didn't put two and two together. That I became a two-sport athlete at art school, which is a hilarious thing to be. It's just an absurd thing. I don't know, but I didn't think about it. I didn't think, I'm going to be, I don't know, I just loved movies and wanted to make movies. I didn't think about it like, I'm going to be a filmmaker and I'm going to have, I don't know, maybe my mom can answer this better. Maybe I did think about it more, but I don't know what I thought. Like, I can't put myself back in that kid. I don't know. It all sounds backwards to me.
The interest in music and the interest in movies, did you ever, in your early 20s, for example, have an idea that one was going to take precedent over the other?
That I can articulate because it aligned with that girlfriend that I had in my early 20s, because I was working on film. That was my focus. I was an indie art film guy, and I had a collective. I had the New York Film Collective that I ran, and all these things that I was doing, and casting these films and making shorts and whatever, and then doing gigs and docs and behind the scenes footage for money and fashion things and whatever. And at the same time, I had a monthly like consulting salary from a record label, and I started DJing, not just like as a hobby, which I had done for a while, but like people asked me, because I was social, I was out a lot, and then they asked me like, do you want to, like, why don't you take a night and be the resident DJ? And I was like, I can't do that. I don't know how to. They're like, what do you mean, you DJ all the time? And I'm like, yeah, but it's different. I DJ like in my bedroom, scratching, and like, it's an art form. It's not like I wasn't a party DJ, and those were different. Back in the day, like being a DJ it wasn't cool, and it was also like exalted. It was like. It was being an artist, and I wasn't that. So I DJ'd for years, but never played for people. I played for a few people, like in our rooms. We had setups with scratch turntables and stuff, and I knew the best people in that, but I wasn't very good. I didn't put enough time into it, and it was just a cool hobby that I had, and I like to fuck around. But looping records and whatever, and making mimicking I Am Urge's scratches, who was the DMC champ at that time. But I didn't know. I wasn't good. So the thought of doing it for other people never really, and then people through parties, like club promoters and managers and stuff like that, asked me if I would do that because I was out all the time. And I eventually said, sure. But it wasn't a game plan. It was like $300. You mean you're going to give me $300? I can like go hang out at this cool place that I already like, invite everyone I like, so the place will be like more full of people that I like, and get them a bunch of free drinks, and I get $300, and I get to control the music. All right. Like, that's how I started DJing parties. And then I did that for someone else, and then I did that for someone else, and then in doing it all the time, I realized what party DJing was. I realized the technique that I was doing. Like this other guy, what's his name? Digits. Yeah, DJ Digits, who was another scratch DJ. I was DJing hip hop the way that people DJ house music, because I was mainly a scratch DJ. However, I had grown up around a bunch of house music DJs, like Jonathan Peters, and I always thought I always had the Jonathan Peters thing in my head that he told me one night about not touching the records, and I would do things on the knobs, on the faders. I would mix hip-hop records. So I would loop and mix hip-hop records, but not hip-hop. You're supposed to like drop the beat on the one and stuff like that. I wouldn't do that. I would do it different. And Digits, I think, was watching me play one time and asked me why I did that. And I told him why. And he said, that's not like how you play hip-hop. And I'm like, okay, well, fuck off, man. And he didn't do it in a mean way. I was like, well, like, either make me better or like, get off my dick. Like, and he said, try doing the same thing, but with disco. And I did. And I was like, oh my God. And those first records, I think it was a DFA thing. It was like a DFA remix that I plugged in, maybe a U-Turn remix. Oliver. Would have been before there was an Oliver, Vaughn Oliver, I think. And then I realized what DJing was. Like in that moment when I mixed those two records, I realized what I had been doing. And then I was like, oh, I could do this. And so anyway, in that time period, sorry, long story for your short question, but I did realize then, so I was a better DJ. In like 2 months, basically, I became a good DJ from not knowing how to mix, basically, for people dancing to like realizing, oh, that's what that is. In about 2 months. And then all of a sudden I could do it every night anywhere, because this was before it was like common to be cool and have people come and socialize with you and know how to DJ the room. Like there weren't a lot of people that could do that. So I quickly became, especially in my crowd, those people tended to be bottle service DJs, like at One Oak and stuff like that. And for me, in like the boom boom room, like shishi hipster kind of crowd, there were very few people like that. So I had like a niche that quickly became meaningful. And my really, really, really smart girlfriend looked at my life, considered, and was like, you're killing yourself. Like I would do a project for like 2 months for $5,000, if that, in film, and like reinvest it to make it better for some client, you know? And I'd be doing that all the time. And I'd be making like probably really bad short films. I was casting this movie that had an incredible cast if I had done it, but I didn't. And because I looked at Antonio Campos and people like Brady Corbett back then, who were my peers, who Brady was like on my couch at the time. And I didn't know what they knew. And I knew that. But I did know how to do the music stuff, and I was making good money on it. I was working for a major record label, doing nothing and getting paid well for it, basically just telling them what I think was cool. And like the parties were great, and the DJ stuff was great. And she was like, why don't you let that be great? And, you know, let the film stuff come when it comes. Because my friends who were going to stay were either going to be like Tony and Brady, who have made it and done incredible stuff, as we all knew they would, or they spent a decade as someone's assistant and stopped, or maybe they continued, or they eventually got their shot. And I have a few friends who eventually got to make their movie, but, you know, broke in the process and ended up compromising themselves, you know, ended up doing something else, like making content eventually. I know people who worked for other, you know, producers and ended up, their minds don't work the way, like their minds don't work well. They're like indoctrinated into stuff and they know it. They're not like, I'm not criticizing them. Like they got taught these things and they're part of huge movies, but they can continue to work on those movies, but that's it. Stepping out is really, like, they don't know how to step out. They got experience working for these people, but they're like stuck in that. And I kind of understood that already. So for me, it was like, I'll go back to movies when I can go back to movies on my terms and be really good at it. And that was after Apple, after we did the original content at Apple, when we launched Apple Music. And I kind of ended up going from platform to content, not by design. It's just, that's what happened because we were marketing the platform and the marketing just became content. And so I got involved in commissioning, producing, directing that stuff. And when I was on my way out of that, I realized that I wanted to do that again, not be a marketing executive at a music streamer. And then took my trip back to, indie film, basically, and ended up re-examining what I thought about and what I felt at 19 and getting back to that guy.
What did you love about indie films? What was the draw?
I think that I'm alive in 2000. I was born in 1984. I'm alive in 2025. And in that period of time, film is we're in the period of the seventh art. Film is the highest form of expression. We have these ideas in our bodies that the whole point of whatever it is that we're doing, the whole point is processing those feelings inside, externalizing them to other human beings, and actualizing our world around that connection that gets made. We do that with words. We do that with writing. We do that with paintings. We do that with watering plants. We do that with architecture. We do that with coding. And we do that at the highest level, in my opinion, with movies. It embodies all the things I just said. Eventually, AI and video games and VR and AR and whatnot will overtake movies. I think God of War and Last of Us 2, for example, gave me feelings that a movie has never even achieved. They're so advanced storytelling wise and experientially. There's things that we've started to scratch the surface of that will eventually overtake movies, but they're far off. And movies are still movies. I think the most important things to happen in the world, much more than Donald Trump over this last, let's call it decade, whatever, are Barbie and About to Be Sinners. Culturally, more, I think Barbie is the most important thing to that, and I'm talking about internationally. The Barbie movie has it affected more of what our world is than anything else. Any law that got passed, anything. And I still think that a big movie moves the world, actualizes ideas in the world more than anything else. And so I'm alive today. Going back to the beginning, I was born to a really, really nice family who took great care prior, a long line of Jews who came from one place and got us here. And I was first born in Manhattan. I have the whole world, available to me. And what am I going to do with that? So naturally, it's movies.
That's fascinating about Barbie. I've never heard that before. What about that film do you think was so affecting? How did it change things in your mind?
I don't think I can. I don't think I have words to do that. I think it would be 1,000 different. Like it wouldn't. It's not. I don't think it's like an essay to write. I think it's more of a. You know it when you see it, and it's a je ne sais quoi. Like I can pick out example, about how women are treated. Like Donald Trump's impact on women, which is, in my opinion, not to make. I'm not someone who like shit talks Donald Trump as a project of my life. I don't care that much. I think Donald Trump has a, let's just say, negative impact on women's position in civilization. And Barbie counteracts that by multiples as a very, very simple way to say it. Like that's the most important. I think whatever, like for whatever people say about politics, like the political decisions, I don't know if I should say this on the internet, but like maybe we can edit it out after. But I think a lot more people will be raped thanks to some of these men who are running political institutions currently in America. And I think a lot fewer women will be raped thanks to the existence of the Barbie movie. Hope that's not too hot button.
No. Which other films? I know you mentioned Sinners, which I've yet to see, and my friend just recommended it to me 2 days ago. What other films in your mind in, let's say, the last 10, 20 years do you think are in that category of having the effect and the reach of those two?
None. None. It's very difficult. Those are world events, I think. I think Sinners is a world event. And a lot of people don't realize how much of a world event it is. And they will never. But it is. That doesn't make it, like, it doesn't require recognition. Like a lot of people realize, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot, like fewer people will realize the impact of Sinners than will realize the impact of Barbie. But like someone said, what about Oppenheimer? And I'm like, Oppenheimer's nothing. Like great movie and stuff, but like that's not a cultural, Oppenheimer does not leave any residue on the world. It does not matter in the slightest. Oppenheimer's just a big movie. Sinners is like, if you're taking a history class, period, like I don't mean an art history class. Sinners is an important political event to occur. in 2025. It's beyond movies. It's like October 7th was an important event, and Sinners was an important event. They're world-shaping events.
Do you feel like you know that when you see it?
Yes.
How do you make that determination?
Everything. Like just whatever I am, whatever I have, whatever I know, that is into that. And it happens a few times in our lives. You know, Twin Peaks is like that. Twin Peaks is monumental, is a historical. Outside of movies, Twin Peaks' impact is historical. We talked about adapting. I do these adaptations and stuff, and people want me to adapt Twin Peaks, and I said it can't be adapted in the form that I adapt things. There's another one that I'm going to adapt from the same milieu, but that is meant to be adapted, and I'm really excited to do that, and that's going to be in a couple months. But Twin Peaks the way to adapt Twin Peaks would be a multi-format adaptation. It would be a feeling adaptation. It would be to take it into the world. It could be done in like an evening kind of thing, but it would not be a play. It would be, or you could do that, but it wouldn't be, it would just be, that's your choice, you know? But if I were to embody the feeling of Twin Peaks in an evening, which is, if I were to do it, that's what I would want to do. I would want to put people in a room and tell them what Twin Peaks feels like to me. And other than showing it, just pressing play. If I were to do a secondary, it would have music, it would have movement, it would be dance, it would be all different forms of art. It wouldn't be just like a play, a narrative. I wouldn't truncate Twin Peaks into a short version live. The way that I'm doing another thing, I'm not shortening, I'm doing it full length, but I'm just adapting it and doing it live because it works that way. But Twin Peaks does not, and Twin Peaks is one of the most influential cultural and civilization influences ever. There's a few. Like Schindler's List is like on that list. I don't know. I don't have the list. Like I've never thought about it. Like the question you just asked me, I've never thought about. I would have to think about it more. Music has achieved it as well. Other things achieve it. Like, you know, the Beatles, whatever. Elvis. Elvis is a great example. Elvis much more than the Beatles.
For you in your artistic life, it's been exclusively movies and music. Have you dabbled in other forms of art, or it's really those two?
I mean, I do plays, if that counts as something different. But I mean, I painted when I was like 13, and my mom talks about it all the time still, as if it was a big deal, because she loves me and stuff. But I don't think it was a big deal. I painted for about 3 months, you know. Did I do other art forms? Like, not really. I can't even play instruments. I can just articulate what to do with instruments in like really annoying language. Like I write music in like my own custom language, and if I work with anyone, I make them have to, you know, I teach them how to understand rather than learn how to write music. I don't know. Tea is very artistic to me. I think of tea as a metaphor for not just human beings, but also the entire process of making anything. So I think about tea a lot. I don't know. What other art forms? Like I can't dance. I don't know. Can't sing. I love opera. I integrate opera into movies and plays, but I integrate.
Yeah.
I like tapping into things. That's why I love movies. Like, yeah, sorry. It's like the question like breaks my brain because movies are everything. So I have to consider everything. I consider all fine art. Like I have these calligraphy pens right here. Like, you know, like, and I do that. I do all my own calligraphy, like my grandma. But like Iroji Ten, like I do that. And I think really specifically about like the way that I use my handwriting. And I put that into movies and I put that into presentations of things. But I just think about all forms, all physical forms, you know, all expressions, anything that's inside of me. I think about it. Like I talk about movies, that every expression of the movie needs to be articulate, and articulate meaning considered in the same way that the movie is considered. The movie is the movie for a reason. The movie is in that form for a reason. It transfers something in a certain way, and you have selected it and constructed it to transfer in a certain way. If you are to write, for example, a synopsis, that might break the nature by which you considered the primary transmission. And that is a bad thing, in my opinion. And I will not do that. So if I'm going to, I don't tell people about movies that I'm working on. I will not do it. If there's a reason, if I have to have a conversation about a movie, I think long and hard about what that conversation is, and it is not off the cuff, and it is not a pitch, it is not a summary, it is not any of the format that people tend to describe. I won't use verbal words as a secondary transmission of the primary. I will consider how to use verbal words to do right by, to supplement, to complement, to sit next to. How should this movie be talked? This is the movie. How would I talk about it to make it feel the way that I want it to feel? And I won't do it otherwise. If it does not, the point is I want you to feel a certain way. I do not want to describe what this other thing is going to be. I want to make you feel the way that I want to make you feel. And it's a huge difference. And I won't do it if I have not had the chance to consider that transmission.
Your role in film in your career has been primarily as a producer. I'd love for you to talk about what different areas within the movie creation process all the hats you've worn in that world.
That's just and not really, but that's something I allow to be in the world. I don't really produce anything, but people think I do. Basically, without derailing a conversation, I have not worked the way that I want to work these last few years. So once I came back to movies as a writer director, stuff happened in my life, personal stuff around people that I love, that made it impossible for me to work the way that I really want to work 24/7 and plan things ahead and stuff like that. And I can only do the kind of work that I'm talking about that way. I can't, I work 24/7 and I love it. And
you're all in.
Yeah. And it's you said Sunday or something. I'm like, Sunday. It doesn't matter. I don't have holidays. And I don't mean that in I'm a workaholic. It's I get to make movies. What would I otherwise do? I want to do, I get enrichment all the time. I'm going to Michael Heiser's The City next week, in the desert, and I'm going to see the coolest art installation to ever exist, probably. I have a nice life. And then I go to Cannes Film Festival and premiere a movie there. I'm fine. And then I'm producing a play with that I wrote with 25 people that I love. So I'm very, very, very enriched. But but I don't, when I work, I nonstop, and I love it. But I have not been able to do that for a while. So what I did instead was I basically part-timed myself in everything. And I just shifted what I worked on. And so people think that I want to do distribution and stuff like that and exhibition and all these things. And it's not really what I want to do. It's just what I've been able to do these last few years because I wasn't able to work full-time. But really, I want to be making movies every day, waking up every day, working on ideas, collaborating with people that make me excited, and presenting things to audiences. I want to be doing that constantly. A clothing line is always in 3 seasons at once, design, manufacturing, and distribution. I want to live like that with movies. And I've actually lately been able to achieve that with plays, with adding plays to it. So I have movies coming out, I have plays constantly, and the movies take forever, but the plays are constant, and that's what's been so wonderful about life lately and being able to work again. But yeah, but the producing stuff, dude, yeah, just being honest, like I don't want to produce things. I want to work with people who I love and make their things I want to make things happen. So like I'll like help get financing for something. I will champion a thing and shepherd it for 3 weeks to build the distribution, you know, to sell the movie and build distribution and stuff like that. But I don't want to do that all the time. It's like not what I care about. I don't like, I want to make the stuff and work on the creative. And one of the reasons why I'm doing the plays is that like in between, you know, no matter how many movies you're not working with actors every day. You're not looking at audiences watching your stuff every day. I want to do that all the time. I want to be able to come up with an idea, write it down, and then hand it to collaborators like quickly and do something with it and be in a constant process of that, which I am now, which is heaven. But with the movies, it's impossible. It doesn't work that way. And it's not begrudging. It's just the way it is. Yeah.
Is a writer director your natural role for filmmaking? Is that what you want to do ideally? That combo?
Yeah, it's the only, to me, like everyone else is, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when I'm adapting, which I do all the time, but like it's not like normal adaptations. Like I'm using these things the same way I'm adapting this guy that I saw walk down the street the other day and do something wild, and I made it into a character. Like I'm adapting that guy the same way as I'm adapting Pride and Prejudice that I'll put on Tuesday. My Pride and Prejudice is not Pride and Prejudice. It's something else.
What do people who have never been involved in movies not understand about the process of doing that, of being a writer-director, of actually making something from nothing, making a film from nothing?
I don't think that people who have or have not been involved in movies are a Venn diagram related to the question that you ask. And I say that to the credit of people, basically, and the discredit in a way of people who have made movies. Making movies does not necessarily have anything to, does not qualify one to be in the group that you just set aside. I think that a lot of people make movies without having the consideration that someone who cooks meals, like a really good cook, is, I've said for a long time, like the first time I had this, like there were two guys who I knew, and one had never worked on movies and one only worked on movies. And a friend of mine, we had another mutual friend who was a money guy, and I forget what the scenario was exactly, but basically it was like he could support one of them, and I was like, you could support the guy who's really good at stuff, who's always doing stuff, different things, or you could support the guy who's made movies forever, but they're like kind of whack. And I told him to support the guy who's never touched movies, but is just generally really good at stuff. And considerate and like builds worlds around himself. I would, if my favorite, I don't know, I'm just like, Lean Tigre from, she's a restaurateur in Los Angeles. I don't know why she came to mind. I love her. She's awesome. If she told me she wanted to make a movie, I'd be like, I would be down. No, to my knowledge, I've never spoken to her about movies. She just runs restaurants. If she had if she wanted to do that, I imagine that she would only want to do that because she has a really great idea that she has filtered and vetted and stress tested and has a plan of why, and she wants to, the way that she presents the most amazing meals to guests all the time for decades now, for 20 years or something. I don't mean to age her, probably about 20 years, maybe 15. I imagine she thinks that she wants to present a movie the same way to other people. So I would love to see her movie more than I would love to see one of my whack filmmaker friends. Like a lot of my filmmaker friends are like content producers and they're whack. And no, they don't do the process. They know less about the process of making something than someone who makes the best chocolate chip cookies or who gardens. Like just a garden's incredible. I don't know, or someone who frames mirrors. I don't know, whatever.
At
just
a certain level of excellence.
Yeah, just they do what they do, or someone who interviews people really effectively by finding the thing of them. I want the empathy machine in them. That's what it is. And everyone comes to making a movie, anything unrelated to movies. There's no guide. Everything is built on exceptions. You only want the exception. You don't want, if there's commonality, it's inherently not. You can only examine retroactively. And retroactively, you don't replicate. You pick and choose lessons to learn. You say, these are the 10 key moments that made that album a classic and made it in culture. And you don't just copy paste and make that your plan. You say, oh, hey, we have that in common. Okay, I could take that. Oh, I know that person. And you take that and you throw 2 things into your plan. And you then you find another one and you get 2 things. And eventually maybe you get to a target list of 10 or you get a target list of 100, and you aim for 10 and a hit rate. But I think you could do that just as easily with someone who's never touched. It's thoughts, it's thinking, and it's recognizing what moves other people. It's feelings. It's thinking to create feelings. And working in movies does not necessarily have anything to do with that. And most people working in movies, I don't think, do that.
Fascinating. You said earlier, I think the word you used was that you have seen a lot of actors in the business who are lost. I think you used the word lost. They have been working in film. My interpretation of what you were saying is that they're working in film and they kind of can't do what they had once been able to do. What did you mean by that? What have you seen in people that has led them to lose something in themselves? I don't know if you mean authenticity or a freedom of roles. What comes to mind when you make that comment?
I'm just going to answer straight to your question. I don't know where I was before with it, but just to your question, what I think about is when I got into this, when I was 4 and my grandma let me watch Lucio Fulci zombie movies and stuff in her warehouse, I didn't think, Grandma, I want to pitch movies to executives. Grandma, I want to do self-tapes. Grandma, I want to do, I want to be what is it called? What do you do when you're, the bartender at a private event or whatever? Like, not hostessing. You know what I'm talking, just whatever. Like I want to bartend so that I can pay my rent so that I could stay auditioning in New York City. That's not what we signed, what we signed up for, nor, get excited by. And if you look at life and, a few people, they become massive and it's like all worth it. It's a lottery ticket, whatever. But the middle is the problem. And the middle, the signal to noise ratio is really bad. Just when you look at your week, how much are you working on creative, either by yourself or bringing it to people? How much are you collaborating with people that you're really excited to collaborate with? Like if you look at your schedule, how many of those are you like, I can't wait to see that person?
Are you fuck yeah about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you can articulate what they add to whatever it is that you are doing. Because it should be 100. But what's your signal to noise ratio on those? And how often are you presenting things to audiences? So talking about actors, I don't think it's that actors, I'm not criticizing in the slightest. It's a life. It's not that they get lost because they want, they do it wrong. It's that they get just the actual day-to-day life is not the thing that makes them think and create feelings. It's all, we think inside and then we externalize the thoughts to create feelings in other people. That's what we do. That's what the whole thing is for. they got into it to do that. We all did. And how often are you getting to do that when you are doing self-tapes all the time? So, I mean, just specific to actors, as you asked, I have friends who, they're taking classes. Like I said this week, 75 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, there were just as many actors coming out of acting classes making it as there are today. But we have like 7,000 times as many acting classes now. The same amount of slots are available.
Yeah.
The same amount of filmmakers graduate from film school as, in the mid 70s or whatever, early 70s or 60s, I guess. Yeah, 60s. When those guys, the Coppolas, the Spielbergs, whatever, went to film school, the same amount of slots are being offered as were then, but there's just 100,000 more film school students. The same amount of roles get cast. There's just millions more tapes being sent around because we have Zoom and we have copy paste and we have attachments and Dropbox and iPhones, and the same amount of thoughts are being processed and turned into feelings as there were before. But there's just a million times as many people trying to be the ones who get to do that.
Yeah.
And how often are you getting to do that?
Yeah. You said earlier that you're working on a play, or that's something that's in your near-term future. I'd love to learn about that. What's the play? What's it about? What inspired you to do it?
Well, I'm doing a play. I did one last month. I'm doing basically like a couple plays a month right now, which the phrase I was always using is irresponsibly ambitious. Because they're not normal plays, like they're like anthology things. So I'm basically like on Tuesday I'm directing like 7 pieces or something like that, and then Alexandra Chin is directing one. And I bridge it all put it all together into like a cohesive narrative, and they all kind of comment back on each other. I'm going to do I have 2 more coming up at the end of the month also that are more like showcasey things, like less structured. And then where I'm working with a bunch of different people intentionally, like as like overflow basically from these ones that I've been doing where there's all these collaborators that I want to like give the stage to. So like I had this very structured thing that we built, that I built and plugged all these people into, but then they all have all these really cool things that they're doing that I'm like, oh, I want to like tag in on that too. So that's where I put the other dates together. So I'll do these like sort of grab bag showcases coming up. One with Tribeca Film Festival and one just my own. But then after that, I'm going to do a full length that I haven't talked about yet. But I'm adapting one of my favorite movies that I realized is a chamber piece very much. I never noticed before, and I rewatched it a few months ago as I was putting I probably rewatched it in March, I guess, right before I was doing that first anthology play, and just realized that the whole impact of that movie is through performances, and that the whole thing can be done, in front of an audience. And I got really excited about that, and I moved things around. I was going to do another one of these anthologies actually, and I changed the schedule just last week. I decided I want to do this full length, and I'll talk about it. I could tell you like off podcast, but like I want to announce it when I announce it. I also want to make sure like we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because I got to write the book still. I already kind of know what it is, but I got to do it. I'm still prepping for Tuesday. But yeah.
Of the movies you have been a part of and worked on, is there one that you are particularly proud of? And if that's the case, why?
No, honestly. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Like, I love everything I've worked on, and I've only done it because I love the people and the work represents something in that process that I want to be in the world, like that they did the job of thinking, processing, and externalizing into feelings. And I'm really, overjoyed to be affiliated with them. But I just, to be honest, like, no, I've just like not really worked the way that I want to work these last few years. Since I came back into movies, I have not done it the way that I've wanted to do it. And so all the things I've been affiliated with, I really love, but I did not do the thing that I have in all this work. I'm like barely, like the movies that my name is on, like I barely did anything on them, and I'm vocal about that, and I'm like I'm a way louder supporter than like I should be. I'm a disproportionately louder affiliate to these things. I become the one who does Q&As for movies that I'm on. Like, not because I did the most work, because I talk in a way and I'm really well known and I organize a lot and I build community and I have, 50,000 emails of people who care about movies that I talk to constantly. Most people don't have that. I put on 100 events around movies a year. Most people don't do that. So who's the one whose name is going to get rattled around when this movie comes out? It doesn't. I'm not the one in charge of any of these movies, though. There's other people who I'm championing, and I'm no more or less proud. The last one we just did our run is Gazer, and I'm super, super proud of Gazer. Ariella and Ryan, I knew through the whole process. Ariella worked with me on Reunion while making Gazer. I think that their story is a flag to wave for independent film. They truly self-financed it through paycheck to paycheck on weekends over the course of 2 years. It's a real, true independent story. It's not based on anything. It's a genre movie with a female protagonist in a noir. It's a movie to be seen in a movie theater by people who watch movies every day. And I'm very proud of that, primarily because I love them, but also because it represents my doctrine. Religiously, I say religion. My religion is movies above Judaism. My race is really, yeah. My race is Judaism, and I'm a religious Jew, but my real orthodoxy is movies, and they're of my ideology. So I really appreciate being able to co-sign something that is, if I were to say like, this is a great and great representation of my ideology.
Talk to me about the events that you throw. You think you said 100 a year or something like that.
I do movie screenings. I just like eventize the cinematic experience. At some point, at one point, like I was saying the word eventize, like before it became, like everyone saying it, and that's just always been my thing. Like even in music, just putting people in rooms, like, and caring about what that experience is. So I always cared about it with DJing and with music festivals and stuff like that, about what the physical experience was. I was always the physical experience guy. Like that's just what I've been in my whole life. Like I was the one who opened venues and cracked codes of how to do a certain space, better than someone else could. And I know how to promote without promoting. Like I don't promote the way that promoters promote. I promote one person at a time, 30 people at a time. Like I want to get tight-knit rooms. I want everyone connected in rooms. I don't want it to be like everyone hearing about something at the same time. I like the mechanics of scenes, and I do that with movies. So like I like to exist in a scene around movies. So it's a luxury for me. It's a privilege to be able to just like, my movie going experience, my theatrical experience is constantly really rich and packed with people who, it's a lit room of people that really care all the time for me and those who attend. And the social aspect is great. It's like having drinks afterwards with all the people that do this stuff and care the most about it. It's a wonderful thing. And then I get to spend time with filmmakers all the time who I don't have the opportunity to make a movie with, but do have the opportunity to do one screening with. And we could spend a few weeks getting to know each other around things like that. And that's a lovely thing. So I have a lot of relationships that, I get to tap in for a brief window with someone who otherwise, like, it takes 2 to 4 years to go make that movie that I'm not going to do, but I can spend a few weeks, and I love that.
Are those viewings always at the same location? Are they all over the city?
All over.
For people that come across this and are curious, like where are they hosted?
Sometimes at the Angelica, like the other night. Sometimes at Gospel, a nightclub that I'll be at on Tuesday. I'm doing 3 nightclubs in a row upcoming. Jeans and Georgia Room also. I'll do movie theaters proper, like Angelica, Quad, Paris, Salmagundi, Neue House, all different kinds of places. I like doing non-traditional places. I love movie theaters, but I love non-movie theaters even more than movie theaters, actually.
Your relationship with gospel, is that primarily what you do with them? Is you throw these events on their behalf at their venue, or what are the details of that relationship?
I know those people from my music life. The owner, Uriel, is a really good friend from forever. And he opened the venue and I was a DJ there at the beginning. And we had done a lot of different things together in our lives. And they're just happy to have, so 10 years later or whatever it is, they let me do my thing there, and they make no money on me, and they are happy to do it because it's a really cool thing that they get to be involved in the arts beyond just, it's like a DJ club, and they do really, really well with that stuff. So they can afford to like take a Monday or a Tuesday, when they're not otherwise doing something.
Yeah.
And also like their staff I'm really tight with. Like Jeff and Sean, who do my lighting and my sound there, like they never work on this kind of stuff. So they like doing it. I mean, unless they're lying to me, but they keep doing it. So like they're not making money on it. So they make really good money on like their other things, and they wouldn't do this, I think, unless it was like a cool, enriching thing. So yeah, they're all like really nice people. And Elsa and Carly, I don't know. I like to think that I'm like a really good partner, and I always have been. And usually I know how to make people money, but I every time know how to bring things outside of money. Like half the time, maybe I have a good like economic system around whatever it is I'm doing, but not always. Like this one is completely no money. I mean, it's free, and I don't know, probably 50, 60 people working on it who we clearly could never afford if it were like a properly budgeted thing. I mean, if we were to do a profit and loss, we would never be able to do all of this stuff. So we're doing so much more. They have this like huge production at their space on Tuesday, but like that would never happen if they were just like renting into a theater company. Or the economics wouldn't make sense. So I'm able to like do things that are completely artistic without breaking the, whatever just the things I do. It's more general thing. Like, the people who do things that I do generally have these like big companies, and I do it independently by myself, which makes me liberated toward the art. They can't. They have all these costs, and they have to go do branded content and stuff like that. So I keep myself out of, I make a lot less money. Like Frank Ocean said this one day, not to compare myself to such an incredible person, but someone asked Frank Ocean in an interview a few years ago, like how he does it, how he goes how he only works on the things that he really, really loves. And he said, I just make less money. Like I just make less money. Yeah. Like if you're willing to if you can figure out how to be stable and cost neutral, like, and you're ready to just make less money. So that's why a lot of people will work with me. They know that I'm not making anything on it. I'm just doing this to do it. And we get rewards out of that. It's not for nothing. I'm not doing it out of charity.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it out of for exposure or something like that. Not begging for it. I'm doing it to elevate, to make something that I could not otherwise make in another way. If I went and raised money around this, for example, I would not do this. I would have to do something else. I would have to go recoup that money. I would have to go do it within the parameters of maybe an impact investor or something like that. I live in this very exclusive pocket of the universe where I do art for art's sake. And I don't know a lot of people who get to do that. And I work really hard to do that. And I take less for it. Like a friend of mine said recently, he was jealous of me. And I'm like, no, you're not. If you were, you would choose. But you're not.
Who are the filmmakers in New York who most people have never heard of, who you admire, whose work you love, that anyone who's still listening this far in the conversation would do well to seek out their work?
Like this is where, so my brain doesn't work normal. I can never answer questions like this. Like if you ask me what I can rattle off that I went to see Sinners twice because it's part of my religious doctrine. It's part of my missionary work. I'm a zealot. I'm a missionary for this cause, and that's part of my, my content on the pulpit is talking about things like Sinners. But probably watched 20 movies since I've seen Sinners, and I can't tell you what they are. I compartmentalize in my brain. I never remember people's names. I know what the feeling was.
Yeah.
I said to someone, this filmmaker who I was talking to today, because I told him I need him to send me, I told him how to frame the email to send me on Wednesday after my show about the thing he wants to build. And I explained that like back in the day, I could tell you not just every song in my set list afterwards, like the next day, I could tell you how long I played the record for, what the transition was. I could tell you what crossfade, where the crossfader was, where which knobs on the high, mid, low EQ or more that I used to make that transition. I could tell you the entire evening, but I would not be able to tell you like who we were with.
Yeah.
And I'm still like that. So I don't multitask. I hyperfixate and shift. I lock in on something and nothing else exists. Like, so this flow state thing, like I flow state at I don't meditate anymore. I used to meditate. I learned how to meditate, and I think I just integrated it into like the way I sip tea and the way that I breathe and the way that I stretch and move. But I don't like take my 22 minutes the way that I used to. And I don't recall things. I don't keep lists. I don't schedule, same thing with you. Like, I don't want to schedule this for next Thursday. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be on my calendar. I don't want to think about it. I don't want it to take up any space in my brain. And I don't mean because it's insignificant. I mean because it's anything. I want to be in idea mode constantly. And so that guy who I talked to earlier today, he emailed me. I emailed him back 3 minutes later. He asked me for a chat that I could have spent 2 weeks not getting back to him, and it would have been completely polite. And I said, "What are you doing right now? Can you send me your phone?" And like, I want to do it immediately. This guy, Troy Carter, an incredible music executive and tech executive, he did that to me once. I emailed him and said, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" kind of thing. And my phone rang like 30 seconds later. And I said, "What's up?" Not because I'm important, because Troy didn't want to think about it. He didn't want to send this to, at the time, I think it was Susie, who was his assistant at the time, who's now a huge executive. Troy takes care of people. He didn't want to take up, Susie's got important stuff to do. Don't spend time scheduling Sean on a phone call that he's asking for a favor. Just call him. So I say all this. I have no idea what filmmakers I think are the coolest. Ryan, Ariella, Brady, Corbett, like Antonio Campos. I don't know. If someone comes to mind, I'll say it. But like, for me to, I'm looking you in the eye. I'm not right this second because I'm like trying to go somewhere. But like, I want to just stay right here. And I want to be in this conversation. Like, I look people in the eye in the most uncomfortable ways. I'm not searching for other things. I'm with Dan, and I want to get full Dan while I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing right now. Like, I have the play. I have the Can movie. I have my grandma. And like, all of that's okay right now. And I'm in Dan mode. I don't know what the other filmmakers are. So you're asking me questions and I'm genuinely just riffing on what comes to mind from your words. And I don't know what other filmmakers I really like. I would have to extract myself and go somewhere else. And I like don't really want to. I want to stay.
Are there any
I could do it after. Like let's supplement it, and let me just shout people out because I love to do that. I want to, I understand where you're going with it. But like, I want to answer your questions and then shout people out separate because I know who I want to. I do my newsletter every week, and I shout people out all the time. Joel Patrikis, great. Volkan Isadora, he's in Detroit, but Go see that movie.
Yeah.
Go see Bonjour Tristesse. That's a Montreal filmmaker. Now I'm getting it for some reason. Now I left. Go see Bonjour Tristesse.
Maybe we can close with this question.
Sure.
Because I ask a lot of guests this. You've been at this now for a long time. Your artistic journey.
Sure.
This is really a question about wisdom and advice you might give a younger version of yourself about what you've learned in the music world, in the movie world. You can take that wherever you want, but what matters? What wisdom, what knowledge have you gained that you think is worth something that younger people who might listen to this, or the younger version of yourself, might have benefited from hearing?
Listen more to your mom and dad, to your grandma, to Lara, to Ashley. Listen more to them than you listen more to them. I wish I did, and I continue to wish that I did. It's just choices. I mean, that's if I regret anything, I wish I listened to those people more. And I continue to try to. And then the actual, content lessons, like, is the choices. Like, that's what I care about all the time. I tell people all the time, we make choices and they become commitments, and we repeat them. And the choices become commitments by repeating them. You repeat the choices, and that's it. So, like, when my friend said he's jealous, I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you could do it any day, but you won't, because you want something else more. If you wanted this, if you wanted the things I wanted, you would make those choices. The world is not small. The world is huge. We have collisions because we make choices. So you run into someone again 10 years later, not because the world is small, but because you made similar choices that brought you back to another collision. We make choices, and that becomes our life. That's what I would tell, anyone. But if I could, I'm not like a regret one. I'm not like a this or that, but yeah, my parents, my grandparents, and, two women in my life, mainly, Ashley more than anybody. But Lara was also, my girl. I had a really smart girlfriend in my 20s, and she was amazing, and she lives a beautiful life right now. But yeah, like, if I just always did what Ashley told me to do, I would be living out every single dream I've ever had. And that goes to that goes backwards to my grandma and to my mom and dad. And I wish I just did that, and I continue to.
What did she tell you to do?
Which one? I mean, they told me a million things.
Ashley.
She's told me so many things. At one point, she told me not to go get a house in Rockaway. And to double down on creating the space for the film world in Lower Manhattan, and to not, retreat and go be quiet in Rockaway Beach, because we're New York City. New York City's, we are from here and we are of it. And if not us, then who? And if honestly, just if not me, then who? I really do look at the film world this way. Like, no one is suited to do the things that I do, and I have to do them if I want them to be done. So I do them. And that's what gives me the energy to do all the things that I like that's what, when you asked before that I'm like many years into it, and I said, well, kind of, I would say, not, to me, the way I feel is not at all. I haven't even started because I feel very different. Ashley knows a different person than the rest of these people do. And these people don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, everyone. And anyone can say that. And it's like nonsense. It means nothing. But I'm just talking to myself right now. It's not to be credited for anything. But that's how I feel. And I feel that being a blessed son of gifted all of the best place in the world for ideas, if I want the ideas to flow the way, if I want this place to be built around the structure of ideas, I have to do it. So I will.
That's a good place to close. Thank you.
Thank you.